Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking at this hour. Moody's, Citi, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley and a few other brokerages hand down sharp cuts to their growth forecast for India. This after first quarter GDP grew at a slower than expected pace of 13.5%. The government maintains that the economy remains on course to achieve 7 to 7.5% growth this year. Wild swings on Dalal Street, the Sensex declines by nearly 800 points, the Nifty loses 1%. Bank stocks, along with oil and gas, lead the decline, but mid-caps outperform, with the index ending with marginal gains. Rupee weakens marginally against the dollar. Crude oil prices fall after fresh concerns over supply and demand slowdown in China. The Indian government hikes the windfall profit tax on crude and the additional duty on export of diesel and aviation turbine fuel. The government collects 1.43 lakh crore rupees in GST collections for August. The mop-up has stayed above 1.4 lakh crore rupees for the sixth month in a row. Direct tax collections also remain robust, with the government on course to beat its budget estimate. Auto sales in August throw up a mixed bag. Maruti, Tata Motors report growth of over 25% due to a low base and some pickup in domestic sales, but exports come under pressure. The chief financial officer of SpiceJet resigns in the airline's first quarter. Losses rise 60% to nearly 800 crore rupees. The auditor raises the red flag about SpiceJet's ability to continue as a going concern. The government's open network for digital commerce is in talks with 3 potential investors. The National Payments Corporation has the approval from the RBI to pick up a 10% stake in ONDC. 2 more investors are likely to join NPCI. The insurance regulator is likely to open up the distribution architecture. Sources say IRDAI is likely to allow individual agents to tie up with more than one insurer. That's an exclusive. The global CEO of Reckitt, Lakshman Narasimhan, will step down at the end of September after 3 years at the helm. Reckitt says Narasimhan has decided to leave for personal reasons, to relocate to the US, and has been approached with a new opportunity. A senior Russian oil executive dies after falling from the window of a Moscow hospital. The company he headed was among the very few to criticize the invasion of Ukraine. Well, let's start with the market action of the day. A volatile session on Dalal Street. Both the Sensex and the Nifty lost 1%. Weak global cues spoiling the sentiment further, with the Sensex down 770 points. The Nifty lost about 200 points. But mid-caps managed to buck the trend, and the mid-cap index ended marginally in the green. Foreign institutional investors sold shares worth nearly 2,300 crore rupees. Domestic institutional investors bought shares worth over 950 crore rupees. Adani Enterprises is now among the Nifty 50 companies. It will be included in the index from the 30th of September. Shree Cement has been excluded, so that's the Nifty reshuffle. Adani Enterprises is just one of the companies that makes their way into the Nifty 50. Shree Cement is excluded. On to the money market action. The Indian rupee weakened marginally against the dollar. The rupee lost about 10 paise in trade today as the dollar index strengthened against most currencies in the world. 10-year bond prices also dropped marginally, with the yield remaining above 7%. But the top story this evening: multiple brokerages have tempered their GDP growth expectations after India reported a slower than expected growth rate of 13.5% in the first quarter. Union Finance Secretary T.V. Somanathan, though, remains upbeat about being able to achieve an annual growth rate of over 7%. He's also ruled out adjustments to the FY23 borrowing target, adding that the government will achieve its fiscal target this year. Lata joins us now with more on the GDP data and why the numbers did not meet expectations. Lata, the good, bad and ugly of the GDP data.
Well, first, the numbers. GDP first quarter number came in at 13.5%. The CNBC-TV18 poll, or the street estimate, was between 15 and 15.5%. And the Reserve Bank's projection was 16.2. So it's lower than all that. Now, if you adjust this number to the Reserve Bank's projections, then the Reserve Bank's full year forecast falls from 7.2% arithmetically to 6.7%. Now, let me just explain why this 13.5 is a bad number. At the outset, 13.5 GDP growth, over 20% last year, looks good. I'll tell you why it's weak. If you take the actual Q1 GDP, it is 36.85 lakh crore. And this is only 3.8% higher than 3 years ago GDP of FY20. That's a poor record of growth.
Okay, Lata, as I mentioned, multiple brokerages have cut their full-year growth outlook. Now, Moody's has cut its growth estimate from 8.8% earlier to 7.7%. Nomura, Citi, JP Morgan and a few others have also trimmed their outlook. Is the 7% growth target for the full year now at risk?
Many brokerages have cut their full-year estimates, mostly to around 7 or below 7. Citi is the most important. They have cut their real GDP number to 6.7. They were standing at 8, so that's a huge cut. JP Morgan has merely said that they are standing at around 7%, so it's not above 7. Morgan Stanley has cut it from 7.6, where they were, to 7.2, so a 40 basis point cut. And CLSA was sitting at 6.7. They've upped it to 6.8%. But the short point is there is a very good possibility India will not get to 7% growth this year. It may be a 6 handle, maybe 6.8, 6.9.
All right, Lata, many thanks for joining us. Oil prices slipping on the back of increased supply worries that global economy could slow down further on the back of tougher COVID curbs in several big Chinese cities. Over 20 million people in the city of Chengdu now face a lockdown as the country enforces its zero COVID policy. Chengdu is China's tech hub. Eunice Yoon joins us now with more. Eunice.
The southwestern city of Chengdu has just imposed its stay-at-home order about 40 minutes ago for its 21 million residents. The city is an industrial base for big multinational companies like Toyota, Intel, as well as Apple supplier Foxconn. Foxconn actually produces iPads in that area. The city also accounts for 1.7% of Chinese GDP. Now, the Chengdu authorities have said that they will allow factories to operate as long as they are in a closed-loop system, which means that workers have to live and work on the premises. Now, this Chengdu lockdown is the latest in a series of COVID controls for factory hubs as well as ports. The port city of Dalian is imposing targeted lockdowns. Residents in the factory hub Shenzhen are being urged not to leave the city. Port city Tianjin, which is nearby Beijing, has undergone 4 mass testing rounds since this weekend, and it looks as though it's going to continue. This is all coming at a very, very sensitive time for Beijing, when the leadership is expected to gather here in the capital about 6 weeks from now, and they're going to be deciding who is going to be in power.
Eunice Yoon, many thanks for joining us. From China back home, the Indian government has hiked the windfall profit tax on crude, the export of diesel and aviation turbine fuel after its fortnightly review. So windfall tax on domestic crude has been raised to 13,300 rupees per tonne from 13,000 rupees earlier. The cess on the export of aviation turbine fuel has been hiked more than threefold, from 2 rupees per litre to 9 rupees a litre. The tax imposed on the export of diesel has also been nearly doubled, from 7 rupees a litre to just under 14 rupees a litre. The government's tax revenue kitty has grown by 25% in the April to July period as compared to the same period last year. All categories, including corporate tax, personal income tax and GST collections, have seen buoyancy. Timsy is here with the numbers. Timsy, how sharp is the rise in collections?
Running ahead of the budgeted targets, robust tax collections have given confidence to the government that they do not need to temper with the borrowing estimates for the current fiscal. Rather, defending the growth estimates, Finance Ministry says that buoyant tax collections are the silver lining. Here is a look at how our tax revenue kitty looks like. If we look at the jump in tax revenues, we see that during the period between April to July this year, we've seen a growth of 25%, which has been built by 37% growth in April, followed by 20% in May, 13% in June, and 33% in July. Similarly, if we see the broad heads that are pulling or contributing to this growth, coming first under direct taxes, here is a look at corporate tax data. During April to July this fiscal, corporate taxes have shown a growth of 35%, where the monthly breakup shows that in April, corporate taxes grew by 75%, followed by 97% in May, 3% in June, and 61% in July. On the other hand, again, under direct taxes, the window of personal income tax has also seen healthy growth of 50% during April to July this year. Indirect tax collections have also seen a growth, reflecting that consumption is back in the economy, though critics say that inflation too could be a reason for the extraordinary indirect taxes growth. But GST collections are reflecting a good trend for the government. Continuously remaining above the 1.40 lakh crore rupee mark, GST collections have given confidence to the government and the economists. If we see the monthly figures, GST collections grew by 20% in April, followed by 44% in May, 56% in June, 28% in July, and again 28% in August. Important to see will be how well government is able to sustain these growth levels in the remaining part of the fiscal.
Timsy, many thanks for joining us. Prime Minister Modi-led Cabinet Committee on Security has approved the development of a more capable and powerful variant of the Tejas light combat aircraft. Tejas Mark II will be developed at the cost of over 6,500 crore rupees. That's higher than the earlier sanctioned amount of 2,500 crore rupees. The cost will cover prototypes, flight testing and certification. August sales numbers for auto companies indicate a mixed bag so far. Maruti Suzuki, Tata Motors reporting a growth of over 25% due to a low base and some pickup in domestic sales, but exports under pressure. Shares of auto major Ashok Leyland hitting a 52-week high, rising to more than 5% after the company bagged a mega order from UAE. It's received an order to supply 1,400 school buses. The total deal is worth $75 million. The Sony-Zee Entertainment merger deal could hit a roadblock. As per a report, the Competition Commission in its initial review has said that the merger could hurt competition by having unparalleled bargaining power. Remember, the merger is expected to create a $10 billion TV enterprise. Responding to the report, Zee has said the market share of the two companies has fallen in key markets and that the Competition Commission's questions are procedural. The National Payments Corporation of India is in talks to acquire close to 10% stake in ONDC, the government's upcoming e-commerce network. But NPCI is not alone. NSDL and Bank of India have also shown interest in picking up the stake in the network. SpiceJet shares declining over 3% today. The CFO of the airline has quit. The airline has also reported first quarter losses of nearly 800 crore rupees. The auditor of SpiceJet has raised concerns about the airline's ability to stay a going concern. Sonia Shenoy joins us now with the challenges facing the airline. Sonia.
Well, thanks a lot for that. So, troubled aviation company SpiceJet tumbled in trade today. In fact, the stock is down almost 40% in the last 1 year alone after the company reported steep losses in its financial statements. Now, after much delay, SpiceJet reported both Q4 and Q1 FY23 earnings, and it's not looking good. SpiceJet reported a loss of 1,721 crores in FY22, much higher than the sub-1,000 crore loss that they reported in the previous year. Even in the first quarter of the fiscal FY23, SpiceJet's losses escalated to 1,784 crores versus a loss of 485 crores in the previous quarter, that is in Q4 of FY22. Now, one of the big reasons for large losses is the steep rise in ATF prices. ATF prices more than doubled year on year and are up 40% quarter on quarter in Q1 itself. However, SpiceJet has seen escalating losses for the last few years without any respite. Let's just map the last 6 years for SpiceJet and look at that. The losses have risen from around 300 crores in FY19 all the way to 1,722 crores in FY22. Now, there are several problems plaguing SpiceJet. The company in August of 2022 delayed salaries for the second straight month. 2 more aircrafts, the Boeing 737s, have been deregistered by the DGCA, and the Chief Financial Officer Sanjeev Taneja resigned on 31st of August. Also, there are deep cracks appearing in the financial health of the company as well. The auditor says that the results that SpiceJet posted cast significant doubts about the company's ability to continue as a going concern. The current liabilities far exceed the current assets by 6,406 crores. And this brings us to the inability of the company to raise funds over the last few years, which is also a big uncertainty. SpiceJet, however, has said that it is shortly engaging with investment bankers for a potential raise of up to $200 million. Back to you.
Sonia, many thanks for joining us on to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Sources tell us that the insurance regulator is likely to look at opening up insurance companies' distribution architecture further. It may allow individual agents to tie up with 3 insurers each in life, general and standalone health insurance. Currently, individual agents are only allowed to tie up with 1 insurer each. The IRDAI may release a draft consultation on this matter soon. In global news, Reckitt has said that Lakshman Narasimhan will be stepping down as the global CEO at the end of this month. The company said that Lakshman has decided for personal reason to relocate back to the United States and has been approached for an opportunity that enables him to live there. Nicandro Durante will succeed him as the CEO in the interim. Twitter users may soon get to edit their tweets after they're posted. The social media giant says it is testing the highly requested feature, the edit button. However, this feature is still under trial and could be made available to some blue-tick Twitter subscribers later this month. We will head into a break, but up next, India's agrarian story is not just about hardships and distress. It's also a story of technology and modernization. A special report when we return. Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has won the trust vote in the Assembly. 58 MLAs voted in favour of the confidence vote. Kejriwal said that they brought a confidence motion to prove that the BJP's Operation Lotus has backfired as none of the AAP MLAs allegedly switched sides. The BJP meanwhile accused Kejriwal of indulging in drama to divert people's attention from the alleged liquor scam. Bengaluru is on high alert due to heavy rainfall that has led to waterlogging and flooding in some areas. The city recorded over 300 millimetres of rainfall in August. The all-time record for rainfall in August was 387 millimetres reported in 1998. The Karnataka government estimates the rain-related losses since June has crossed 7,000 crores, has written to the union government seeking assistance. India's agrarian story is not just one of distress and hardship, it's also a story of modernization and harnessing technology and adapting scientific theory to practical application. Jude Sunak stopped by a farm in a district in Tamil Nadu that's gone digital and is reaping the benefits of this change. Take a look.
You can't miss the portable weather stations on this farm, standing tall to provide live climatic data. Not far away, a farmer uses an AI app to get the lowdown on the health of his crops. Nearby, a soil testing lab sees a technician analyzing samples to figure out the best spot to sow the next crop. We're at Hosur in Tamil Nadu, where agri-tech startup Waycool is helping farmers use technology to get the best yield from the season's sowing. Waycool says its flagship platform, Outgrow, delivers pre-harvest tech innovations which improve yield and save costs. In the last couple of years, the company has taken the concept and implemented it at several farmlands in the south. Technological interventions at the pre-harvest stage have helped nearly 7,000 farmers do better business. But Waycool says that not only have farmer incomes improved by 5 to 30%, but the very fact that AI is used in directing farming processes means there's a huge saving involved at the time of cultivation. The results from tech transformations at farms like this one have caught the fancy of the farming community in the region.
The very fact that we are able to go from a 60 farmer pilot to a 7,000 plus farmer shows that there are benefits that the farmer is getting out of this platform, right? So the range of, depending on the crops that they are cultivating, the range of benefit that they are getting is between 5 and 30% in terms of improvement in income and about 10 to 20% in cost reduction.
From tomatoes, cabbage and carrots to guavas, papayas and spinach, these farmers have begun using Waycool's tech to plan entire planting seasons. From fertigation cycles to assessing microclimatic soil data and optimizing irrigation, Outgrow also helps farmers troubleshoot through an AI tool that helps detect crop diseases and recommends treatment protocols. The inputs from soil sensors and weather data help farmers understand and implement necessary cultivation practices backed by cold, hard data. The app comes in 5 languages, including Hindi.
Weight increase, sir.
Our total yield has increased. Crops that used to give us 1 ton of produce now give us 1.5 tons.
Earlier, our crops used to be irrigated without checks and controls. Now I get to know exactly how much water is needed for an entire day. This ends up saving me a whole lot of effort and investment.
Waycool hopes that the popularity of its AI-backed farming tool will grow and it will be able to replicate this success and acceptance across farmlands in South India. It is also working on constant updates to its technology and hopes to enlarge this footprint first across its existing base of 180,000 farmers and then beyond. In Hosur, Jude Sunak.
The big global stories in international headlines. The Sri Lankan government has reached a preliminary agreement with the International Monetary Fund for a loan of $2.9 billion. The loan agreement is subject to approval by the IMF management and its executive board and is contingent on the Sri Lankan government implementing previously agreed measures. Over 1,100 people have now been killed and 33 million impacted in Pakistan, which is witnessing its worst floods in decades. The UN has described the floods as an unprecedented climate catastrophe, launched a $160 million donation appeal.
So it's a natural disaster, and if Pakistan can help India and India can help Pakistan, actually we are all a part of the South Asia, and as far as my understanding is concerned, in coming few years, the whole of South Asia is going to face this climate crisis, including Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Nepal. So the South Asian countries should sit together and they must develop a joint strategy how to tackle this climate crisis.
The United Nations Human Rights Office has released a report minutes before its chief is set to leave, highlighting that China's arbitrary and discriminatory detention of the Uyghurs and other Muslims may constitute crimes against humanity. The report, however, did not use the term genocide. China has slammed the report, calling it a pure farce. A senior Russian oil executive, Ravel Maganov, has died after falling from a window of a Moscow hospital. Lukoil, the company he headed, was among the very few to criticize the invasion of Ukraine. 1 week after Putin's military operation began, the board of directors at the company issued a statement calling for a ceasefire and expressed sympathy with all victims. Russia's President Vladimir Putin will not attend the funeral of the last Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, citing scheduling constraints. Speaking to the media, the Kremlin spokesperson said that Putin visited the hospital where Gorbachev died and laid a wreath. Gorbachev will also not receive an official state funeral, making him the first leader since Nikita Khrushchev, who died in 1971, to not be given that honor. Democrat Mary Peltola has won the Alaska congressional seat, which was held by the Republicans for close to 5 decades. The first Alaska native to be serving in the U.S. Congress, Peltola defeated Republican Sarah Palin, who once served as the governor of the state. Late Republican Don Young held the Alaska seat for 49 years before his death in March. And the UK Prime Ministerial race has entered its final lap. Candidates Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, who faced off for the last time at the Wembley hustings yesterday, were less acrimonious towards each other. Reports suggest that Truss looks well poised to succeed Boris Johnson. Sanjay Suri gets us more from the Wembley finale.
The last of the hustings to elect a Conservative Party leader and Prime Minister of Britain was held in Wembley Arena on Wednesday evening. This turned out to be a Rishi Sunak show all the way. That Rishi is way behind in the opinion polls seems to have done nothing to diminish the spirit of his supporters.
I like Rishi because he's got integrity and he doesn't try to just give us short-term solutions. He's looking for the longer, bigger picture.
The polls can't be relied on. It's the members voting in their own homes, that making their own decisions, and that's what we're relying on.
Not everyone seemed ready for Rishi. He has described himself as the underdog in this contest, and many more are more seriously ready for Truss.
Rishi has got very good presentation skills, but I think Liz has far more cabinet experience, and that's the main reason why I'm voting for her.
She wants to do something, well, extraordinary things for the youngsters, age 18 to age 25, and then age 26 to age 50. So that's the huge voters, they are the big vote bank.
And so the great hustings show is now over. And so it has been for some time. Rather than a platform for persuasion, most people appear to have voted very early in this process. And let's not forget that began in late July. The first hustings were held in Leeds at the end of July. And this now was the 12th of the hustings, the last of them.
I'd also cut taxes. We were wrong to raise national insurance. We said we wouldn't. We said we wouldn't. We said we wouldn't in our manifesto, and I believe in keeping your word. And we are still able, even if we reverse the increase, we are still able to start paying down the national debt in 3 years' time.
I introduced a windfall tax as Chancellor, and I'm glad that I did, because it was the right thing to do. I don't actually know if Liz supports it or doesn't support it, but I think it is absolutely the right thing at a time when energy companies are making billions of pounds of profits because of a war. That's not right, and we should exceptionally tax those and help use those for people's bills.
In his own way, Rishi Sunak is quite the star among Indians, whatever the outcome, and he was certainly greeted like a star. He was mobbed by his supporters. Liz Truss has her support clearly where it matters. We will have the outcome on the 5th of September after the last round of voting on the 2nd.
And the 5th of September will be the big day. Sanjay Suri reporting there from Wembley. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned. The news continues here on CNBC-TV18.